As you navigate life's demands, you recognize there's more to achieve, learn, and become. Opportunities abound, and you're not just here to keep up. You're here to lead and innovate. In a world driven by technology, mastering tomorrow's tools is key to unlocking your potential. Even visionaries need guidance. You need a platform that equips you with knowledge and empowers you to apply it meaningfully. A place where each step, each click, and each line of code brings you closer to your goals. We are that platform. At Figures Hub, we provide the skills, knowledge, and support to turn your aspirations into achievements, whether it's data analytics, cybersecurity, cloud engineering, artificial intelligence, or web development. We ensure your journey is as limitless as your potential. Join us to build your future. With the right tools and mindset, there are no boundaries, only possibilities. Unlock your potential and let's create something extraordinary together.
I would like to hand over the mic to our expert instructor in person of Mr. Onwuchaka David. Mr. Onwuchaka David, who will be taking us on how to clean data using Excel. All right, Mr. David, I welcome you to the I hand over the mic to you right now. Over to you, Mr. David.
All right, thank you, Mr. Oluwatudi, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so yeah, thank you, Grace. So we are going to dive into the, I don't know, Mr. Oluwatudi, I don't know if you can stop presenting. I'd like to start presenting now. Okay. So for today's webinar, like he has introduced, we'll be looking at data cleaning using Microsoft Excel. So I believe that we all can see my screen now. So I'm going to be using slide for the introduction, but what we are doing today is going to be practical based. All right. So just like our host introduced, Excel is not the only tool we use for data cleaning. There are other tools that we use. We have MySQL. We have Python. In fact, me personally, I enjoy using Python more. We have R programming. You can even do data cleaning in tools like Power BI or Tableau. But then, some of these tools are quite limited on the actions they can complete, on the tasks they can complete about data cleaning, while some are more efficient than the other. But for today's webinar, I'll be focusing on Microsoft Excel for data cleaning. So before we continue, please, if you have questions along the line, I mean, when we dive into the case study, when we start the practical part of it, if you have any question along the line, please drop your question in the message box and we'll pick it and address it either at the end of the webinar, or maybe if it's the one that needs addressing immediately, we'll address it at once. Okay, so for today, this is going to be our outline. First, the introduction. Then I'll talk about the process of data cleaning. Then we'll dive into the case study. And then, I don't know, for those of us that want to follow along, because I believe the data has been made available to us. So for those of us that want to follow along, what we'll be using is Microsoft 365 for this practical. Okay, so now, introduction to data. Most of us here already know what data is, but I'm just going to give a brief introduction. So just like we are seeing on the screen, data represents pieces of information that on their own may have little meaning or can be processed or analyzed to generate meaningful insights. So the main takeaway here is data represents pieces of information. These are pieces of information that on their own, they have little meaning. So for me, I like to use a puzzle to explain data. Like data is like a piece of puzzle. Individually, they don't really say much. All right. Individually, they are still piece of information, but they don't say much on their own. But when you are able to fit the puzzle perfectly together, you have a story. telling you a lot. Okay. So what's the importance of data? It helps us to make what's informed decision. So just like I highlighted here, what is very important to us about data is what the meaningful insights that they present to us. But then again, what is meaningful also depends on the objective and goal of the person or individual or the company making use of the data. All right. So now, before we talk about data cleaning, I would like us to look at the data analysis process. So for the data analysis process, we always start with defining the question. That's the case study, the project. So after the project definition, like subject experts, then we'll go ahead to collect our data, then clean it up before we analyze and visualize. Okay. And then we should also note that the accuracy of our analysis depends greatly on this data collection and data cleaning. So whatever we miss here can make our analysis invalid. No matter how detailed, no matter how far you go with your analysis, it can make it completely invalid if you miss out in data collection and data cleaning. And that's why we said that data cleaning is crucial in early stage in data analysis process, ensuring that the data used is accurate, consistent, and complete. So let's mark these three words: ensuring that the data is what's accurate, consistent, and complete. So today we'll be making sure that the data we have been presented with is accurate, 1, 2, consistent, and 3, complete. In fact, this is the 3 objectives we are looking at anytime we are doing data cleaning. All right. So, but then again, what is beyond our capability while cleaning data is the first stage, which I've mentioned here. That's the data collection. So, for example, in data collection, they might have the person that collected the data may have collected or recorded the wrong values that may be very hard to trace. Yes, we can have the possibility of that, and that might be beyond our capability. Okay, and that might go as well as making our analysis invalid. And that's why I said both of them are very important. And when you are cleaning data, you are supposed to work hand in hand with whoever collected the data. But in a scenario or a case when you don't have that, when it's not possible for you to work directly hand in hand with the person that collected the data, okay, then we have other approaches that we can use to actually detect errors in our data. So we can have issues like wrong categories, or wrong values, or wrong names that might be very hard to trace. Okay. So now let's dive into the case study of. So the data that we are going to be using for today is a movie data. All right. So a movie data, the analysis can help in evaluating financial performance of past movies and predicting the potential success of future projects. That's for investors. Investors can use it to decide which particular production or which particular genre of movie to invest their money in, maybe drama, maybe action, maybe romance, or whatever. All right. But our own objective today is to ensure that data is what's accurate, consistent, and complete. Okay. So then, prior to data cleaning, there are things we need to understand. All right. We have to understand the data. We have to look at the number of fields, look at the number of records, then know the data type for each field and expected values, and know the categories for the categorical data. So we ought to have this in place, either by studying the data or from the person that actually collected the data. Okay, there's what we call metadata. Metadata is data that explains the data. All right, people that collect data also prepare metadata for the data. So there we can actually get this from for the data before we start data cleaning, because we are going to be using it greatly in the data cleaning. So now that I'm done with the introduction, we'll be diving into the practical parts of today's webinar, which is the data cleaning itself. Okay, so by the end of this webinar, let me first introduce our data to us. So by the end of this webinar, this is what we are presented with. This is the data. As we can see that in some of the movies columns, we will have some duplicates. In the year column, we have a lot of special character recorded together with the year itself. So also we have some missing values in the rating column. and in the gross column, we have we have the money entered with the symbols and all. And we all know that we can't use this to actually do analysis, because we have to ensure that the data type is correct. Okay. So by the end of today, we will be having this. We will be having this by the end of today. So this is actually the clean data. And I want to mention that when we are done with this webinar, we are going to make this available to us. Also, we are going to make this slide available to us. And this webinar is also going to be recorded, so we can always go back and look at it, maybe follow through to practice what we've done today. All right. So, like I said, prior to data cleaning, the first thing you want to do, you want to know what the data is about. Okay. So, when looking at this is not that large data. So it's easy for us to actually know what the data is about. But when you want to know what data is about, the simple formula that I use is looking at the test column, because I take them as the data ID. All right. So by test column, I mean these ones. This is your movie. This is your gen. Okay, these two are the only test column here. So I take them as the data ID. All right. So looking at them, it can tell you what the data is about. And looking at the movies, we can see that this data is about different movies, their year of production, the gen, the rating, their votes, their runtime, and the amount used put into the production. All right. So first of all, when we start the data cleaning, we want to know the total number of our rows and the total number of our columns. So what I'm going to do that is very simple. For the rows, I'm going to take this this first column. Remember, we're making use of Excel here. I know that with Python there, we can do this differently and even more simply. But for Excel, all you have to do is to highlight the primary data ID. I refer to it as primary data ID because the primary data ID is mostly unique. The values are mostly unique, and you might not have duplicates in them. So, and you hardly see missing value in them. So all you have to do is to highlight it. Then go down to this part. You will see this count 1308. Okay. So with this count, I know that I have 1,308 rows for this particular data. Then to know the number of columns, all I have to do is to also highlight the top level of the data. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to see count 8. So actually we have 8 columns and 1308 rows. All right. But still remember, we have a lot of missing values inside these 1308 rows. Okay. So, and that brings us to the next step, which is to treat this, to find this missing value and also what treat them. So in Excel, how do we do that? We start by going through them individually. So I will just highlight, then I'll go to filter. So on the movies column, I'm going to take them column by column and find the missing values individually. So for the movie column, I'm going to highlight on select all, and I'm going to scroll down. There is no missing value for the movie column. Actually, so I'll go to the next one. Then I'm going to scroll down. And yes, we have missing value here, so I can. Okay, so I can, just like that, I can check through all the columns and know where I have the missing value. So now, how do we treat this missing value? Of course, when you have missing value, you can decide there are different approach to it, depending on the data type, all right? So one approach to it, you can decide to drop those rows that have that missing value if they are not much. Most of the time, if they are not up to 5% of the total data you have available at your disposal. Or you can decide to drop the rows if the rows are mostly full of missing value. Let's say you have this, we have about 1308 data here, rows of data. And let's say out of 1308, one particular rows only have 30 recorded values. Then that particular, I say rows, column, that particular column is actually of no value to us. We can just take it away because it doesn't really have much value to us. So you can decide to drop the rows or drop the column. Or for numerical data, you can decide to calculate the median or the mean and replace the missing value with the median and mean. All right. So that you can have more general, especially when you are working for machine learning or want to train a machine learning model for prediction. All right. You want to have more data at your disposal. So you don't want to be throwing away the data that you have. So you can just simply calculate the median or the mean and fill it up and fill up the missing value with that. But in our own scenario, we are not looking at prediction or whatever. So depending on the number of missing value, we'll know what to do with it, either to drop it or to fill it up. Okay, so now there's this general rule I use when I'm treating missing value, all right? We decide to, I normally decide to start with the column with highest number of missing value, okay? So clearly I've already gone through this data, so I know the most missing value is in this particular runtime column. So I'm just going to highlight it first and see the number of missing value we have here. Okay, so when I highlight the column of movie, the movies column, I'm going to see the count is 70. So we have 70 missing value, which is not even up to 5% of the total data. So instead of having it messing up our analysis, I'm just going to drop it and make that particular one invalid. All right. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to highlight. So these are just some little shortcut tips that I'm going to be dropping along the webinar. So when you want to highlight and drop or delete some rows, all you have to do, use a Control-Shift, then down. Okay, that highlights everything, and then you can right-click and delete row. Okay, all these shortcuts is still going to be available with the slide anyway, together with the functions. Okay, so I believe that is done. So we are pretty okay with missing value now. I'm going to remove the filter. Okay, so the missing value is no longer an issue now, especially in some of the column. But I can see that for the gross column, we still have some missing value. So I'm still going to highlight it and do the same thing for it. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to uncheck select all, then I'm going to go to blanks and click OK. All right. So I'm going to come here. So I have 54 more missing values in the gross column. Okay. And gross column is actually important to us because that actually have the price of the production for these whole movies. So I'm going to take away these ones that doesn't have the price for it. Though, on the other hand, I can decide to just get the mean or median of the whole values there and put it there. But in this scenario, we are not looking at using this data for prediction. So I will just drop the rows. So I'm just going to highlight. Then I'm going to delete row. Okay. So I'm going to come back here. Then I'm going to remove the filter. Okay, so we are done with the missing values now. So we have our data, the complete data that I want to be working with. All right, so the next one should be for duplicates. Okay, so now I want to look at duplicates. So for the same thing, for duplicates, we'll be looking at the columns individually to detect duplicates and also treat them accordingly. Okay, but then it's very important that we note that when we are treating duplicates, what the computer highlights as duplicates, we need to inspect it because most time, for example, for some movies, there are some movies that can bear the same name, but they were produced by different producers, okay, in different years. So if we highlight them as if Excel highlight it as duplicate and drop it for you, then you'll be having a problem with your data because actually they are not actual duplicates. Okay, I'm going to be showing us an example of that, and at the same time using that to point out to us how we can actually highlight duplicates. Okay, so I'm going to take the movie data, have to highlight, then I'll go to the conditional formatting. I'm going to go to new room, then I'm going to go to format only unique or duplicate values. So I'll set a duplicate, then go to formats, and I'll go to fill. Then I'll choose whatever color I want to use to highlight duplicates. Then I'm going to say OK. All right. So next thing I do is that I'm going to come back to the filter. Then I'm going to click on filter. Then I'll click on the drop down. Then I'll go to filter by color. Then I'll choose that. So these are the duplicates I have for the movies. Okay. So I can decide to take these duplicates one by one. I can just to inspect them. So I can highlight the kingdom. So when you highlight the kingdom, let me look for the second kingdom here. So I highlighted the both of them. Okay. So looking at the both of them, we can see that they are not actual duplicates, because for this particular kingdom, I'm seeing year 2014, while for this particular kingdom, I'm seeing year 2019. All right. And their gross gross amount of production is also different. I'm seeing 342 here, and I'm seeing 0.24 here. Okay. So we can see that they're actually not duplicates. So we'll do the same for each and every one of them. So we highlight these two. Look at the highest. The highest we have the year 2021 and year 2015. So they are not duplicates. So just like that, I've actually inspected the data earlier, so I know that there's no duplicate here. But I just want to show us that this is just the normal procedure. Okay. So when you finish inspecting all, you might actually be able to get a duplicate and then decide to delete or drop it from the data. Okay. So I'm going to clear the filter. All right, then I'm going to remove the filter from this particular column. So we've treated the duplicates for movies. Then for the year data, actually, for the year data, I'm going to open another tab here. So I'm going to open another tab here. So I'll start moving the clean the data to that tab. And sorry, I forgot to mention, part of the best practices when cleaning data is to first of all make a copy of that data that you want to clean. All right. So before you start, you're supposed to make a copy of that data. So you're not supposed to be working on the actual data. You're supposed to make a copy, and copy is what you work on. And also you document each and every step that you take. When you drop a column, you document it. When you drop a missing value, you document it. All right. So going back to this, I'm going to, so I'll pick this one to this place. So I'm done with the movie column. I'm going to go to TA. So now I want to get rid of the special characters that we have in that year column. Okay. So most time, though, sometime it might not really be special character, but for number mostly is special character, or maybe having a test value together with the numbers. This can be as a result of mistake. Maybe if there's most especially data that was collected from the internet, most time has this loss of errors. Okay. So to clean that up with Excel, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to insert a column. All right. So when I insert a column, I'm going to use a function to do that. I'm going to use a function to clean that up. So I'm going to use a function, but I won't be going into detail about the function, because this function is not, it's not like there's a single function in Excel that does it. What I did to get to the function, I actually combined a lot of Excel function to get to the function that helped me to remove special character from a particular column. Okay. But I'll also make that function available to us at the end of this webinar. So I'm going to place the function here. So this is the function. So once I click here, we can see that we no longer have special characters here. So what we have here is just the year. All right. So now to copy this particular tax, this particular function, to copy this down to the whole of the data, all you have to do, take your cursor to that particular cell and ensure that it changes to plus icon. Once it changes to that, then double click. And that's just it. So we are done with the A column. I will now highlight and I will copy. And I will paste. Okay, so that is for the year column. Then the next column here is the gen. So for the gen column is actually a categorical values. How do I know that they are categorical values? Because officially I know that there are some, there are just some group of gen a particular movie can belong to. Okay. And the way we treat what you should be expecting in categorical value is mostly data inconsistency. Okay. Someone can enter the category of one particular movie action, a capital letter, and the other person can enter another one, let me say Outer Banks action, a small letter. All right. Most of the tools that we use won't be able to see them differently. A tool like Python is going to see them, is not be able to see them as the same, they will be able to see it differently. So Python is going to see them as two different categories. So when you are doing data cleaning, you want to ensure that the same case is maintained all through. So that's the part of data consistency. So that's mostly what we look at when we are treating categorical values. So at this point, we are going to have some short break before we continue.
All right, Mr. David, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vicent. All right, thank you everyone for your patience. So going back to the case study, I'm going to be sharing my screen again. All right. So it's going to take a little time before it comes up. So I believe we can all see my screen now. All right. So okay, so we actually stopped with the column here. All right, so going over to the next column, which is your gen, which I just explained earlier, is a categorical column. So first of all, you want to know the categories that you have in this particular column. But remember, I stated in the before we started earlier that you are supposed to have the categories beforehand. It's going to be part of the metadata that will be provided to you along with any data. All right. Before you analyze or you clean up any data, you're supposed to ask your data provider for a metadata that actually explains that data. And most of the time, you're going to have the unique categories for the categorical values in them because you're going to be using it to clean the categorical value up. But in the case of this data, we don't really have the metadata. So what we are going to do, we are going to identify the categories by ourselves. So we are just going to highlight this, then go to sort and filter. Then go to filter. So we are going to, okay, no need to, sorry, before filter, we are supposed to highlight the unique. So highlight, then go to conditional formatting, then go to new, then go to format only unique or duplicate values. Then for the formatting, choose the color of your choice, click OK, then OK. Then we can now go back to filter. And filter. Then in the filter, we go to filter by column. All right. So these are the unique. Sorry. Let me clear this. I was supposed to clear this particular. Manage rules. Delete. Apply. Okay. So, oh, sorry. Actually, let me check something. Oh, I was supposed to change this to a unique and not duplicate. Okay, because what we are looking for here is for the unique categorical values. So I'm going to click OK now. I'm going to click apply. I'm going to click OK. Good. So now I'm going to click filter by color. Okay. I need to clear the first filter. Okay. Okay, so fine. So these are the unique category that we have. So to know the number of unique category that we have for this particular column, I'm just going to highlight it. Then when you come down here, we have 120 unique categories. And you know that the data itself is 1,308 values or records. So out of these 120 unique categories, you are supposed to inspect it. Okay. So inspecting it, most of the time, you might want to do some advanced data cleaning. That's in that regard, I mean, you want to recategorize these categorical values, because coming here, you see something like action, horror, thriller, drama, fantasy, romance. Okay. So, and when you want to, for analysis, to have a more detailed analysis, you might want to separate them. Okay. So we can decide to recategorize this particular column, or we can decide to just leave it the way it is. But for the purpose of this case study and the fact that we don't have much time in our hands, we are just going to leave it the way it is. Okay. But what we can do is that with what we have now, since we know the unique categories that we have, we can decide to look out for errors. Okay. So how we can do that is by filtering by the category one after the other. So we can filter by the individual categories. We can take the action, horror, and thriller, then filter it through the whole data, okay, and look out for mistake and correct them individually, okay. But prior to this, I've actually inspected this particular column, and I noticed that there is no errors in the categorical values actually. So let's not take our time there. I'm just going to clear the filter. Then I'm going to remove the conditional formatting. So I'm going to come here. Then I'm going to, I'm going to clear. Then I'm going to clear those. Okay, so we are done with the gen column. Now the categorical value. Then the next column, the label is column 5. And since there is no metadata here, and the column 5 is not a good label to actually tell you what the data is about. So of course, it's of no use to us. So what we are going to do is we are going to delete it. We are going to drop that particular column. Then the next one is the rating. Okay. So if we are paying attention, remember I always mention the data type. The data type is actually very important. Okay. For example, this is a test data. This is a test data, but also a categorical data. Okay. Then this is a numerical data. So when we are treating a numerical data, when we are cleaning numerical data, that's the numerical values, there are things we look out for, okay? And one of the things you look out for in numerical values, sometimes you can have tests. You can have tests in the column of numerical values, okay? Which is not supposed to be so. In Excel, we can easily detect it using a function in Excel. Okay. Then apart from that, we can have outliers. All right. So by outliers, we mean some number that are far above or below the distribution of the numerical values. And when you have those numbers, most of the time it can be due to errors. All right. So when you're seeing something, this is rating, the rating should be between 1 and 10. And when you're seeing something like 100, of course, you know that that's not possible. That whoever entered it by mistake. So when you have cases of outlier, there's a way we treat outliers. We don't drop them completely. Okay, we something like you can decide. There are different approach. For example, we get to see 100 here. We can decide, since the highest is 10, we can decide to set all values from 10 and above to 10. Okay, and we can decide to set all values from okay, there's possibility that someone can actually rate a movie 1 or rate it 2, depending on how they felt about the movie. Okay, so to check out for outliers, how do we do that? All you have to do is to highlight, then go to inserts. So we have a special type of plot that we use to detect outlier, and that's your box plot. So when you click on the box plots, I'm going to increase it so that we can see it very well. So when you click on it, so this is it. So with box plot, you'll be able to see the outliers. So the distribution of this particular data actually falls within this and this. That's 6.3 something and 7.9 something. That's where the distribution actually falls on. And these are the outliers. Okay, we have one. This is 1 point something. This 2 point something. This 3 point something. All these ones. Okay, so now looking at the outliers, we can decide whether there are actual errors or not. But obviously, I know that since I don't have any not any value above 10, of course, this cannot be errors. Probably there are some persons that can dislike a movie so much that they will rate it 1, 2, 3 is possible. Okay, so I'm going to dismiss it as an error. All right, so that's it for the rating column. Then for the votes, the same thing. For the votes, you want to check if these are the number of votes, okay? These are number of votes, and there is no such large, as in there's no such thing as the vote is too large, unless you actually know the population of people that voted. But if we don't have that information, you can't really say that a particular vote is too large, okay? We can see some of the movie getting up to 41,000 and above. We can see some getting 17. We can see some getting just 5,000. Of course, it's possible. So what you might want to look at on this particular column might be missing value, okay? But we already treated the missing value. So obviously there's no missing value. But then what you can also look at is whether there is any test. Okay, let me show us an example of how to find out if there is any test in that particular data column. So I'm going to highlight. Let me take this for example. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to highlight. I'm going to go to conditional formats. Then I'm going to click on new row. Then I'm going to click on use a formula to determine which cells to format. Then I'm going to paste this. So this formula is just simply is a combination of two Excel functions. Okay. So the first one is the number function. Its number function highlights all the cells that is of data type number, that's numerical values, while the not function inverts that particular operation. So I'm going to go to formats and I'm going to hit on the column. And I'm going to say OK. Then I'm going to say OK. Sorry. Okay, this is actually F2, not so I'm going to edit. Okay, so this is F2. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click apply. I'm going to say OK. All right. So you can see that. So for us to know, because you can't just scroll down to see whether there's any highlighted cell here. So for us to know, what we can do is that I'm going to highlight, then I'm going to come to filter. Then I'm going to filter by color. Okay. So I'm going to filter by color. And then I have this filtered. So, but looking at the filtered values, we can see that they're actually numbers, not they're actually numbers and not text. So it's either from our formula. Maybe when I clear the first row, I didn't cache it, or it can be the data type. All right. So I'm just going to clear this. I'm just going to clear rows. Okay. Then I'm going to remove the filter. Then the same thing for the runtime. The runtime is still a numerical value. So what you should expect here is either a missing value, which we have treated, or maybe there is a test inside the numerical value. Okay. And still the same method, you use the conditional formatting to highlight the cell that actually have a text. Then use the filter to inspect them. Then you decide whether to drop or to delete. Okay, but very important, always ensure to inspect before you go ahead in deleting, or because actually we have Excel shortcuts that we can actually use to just find and delete, find or replace. Okay, but when you use that find or replace or find or delete, most of the time you might be making a mistake because there are some details that Excel might not be able to notice. Something like what we just saw now, highlighting a value, a numerical value as a test, maybe because the way the data was formatted, it was formatted as a test. Okay, so you want to actually inspect before you decide to replace or decide to drop. All right. So finally, the last part of this data cleaning process with Excel that we are going to do is this gross column. So what we are going to do here, we can't really use this to perform any analysis because what we have here, we are expected to have a numerical value. But what we have here is not a numerical value, it's actually a test value. And how do I know that? Because I have special characters. This dollar icon is a special character and this M is a test. So what do you want to do? You want to strip the special characters from that particular column. So there is a simple formula for that. I'm not going to go into detail with the formula, but I'm going to make the formula available to us for study when we are done with this webinar. So this is the formula. So I'm going to edit it. I'm going to edit because the column I'm working with is this column H. So I'm going to edit and this. All right, so we can see that we now have our value, our numerical value stripped off any special character or any test value. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this down for the rest of the code. I'm just going to double click, and that's it. And this is our data. Okay, so now I'm going to leave the space for us to ask questions. So I'm going to stop sharing so that we can ask questions.
As you navigate life's demands, you recognize there's more to achieve, learn, and become. Opportunities abound, and you're not just here to keep up. You're here to lead and innovate. In a world driven by technology, mastering tomorrow's tools is key to unlocking your potential. Even visionaries need guidance. You need a platform that equips you with knowledge and empowers you to apply it meaningfully. A place where each step, each click, and each line of code brings you closer to your goals. We are that platform. At Figures Hub, we provide the skills, knowledge, and support to turn your aspirations into achievements, whether it's data analytics, cybersecurity, cloud engineering, artificial intelligence, or web development. We ensure your journey is as limitless as your potential. Join us to build your future. With the right tools and mindset, there are no boundaries, only possibilities. Unlock your potential and let's create something extraordinary together.